I mean, that's how close it is. So you got to give them credit. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, shoot, the dude made, those guys made big plays, and that's what it comes down to, is who makes enough of those big plays. We dropped a couple interceptions too. I mean, we were in position, and unfortunately we didn't execute when we had the opportunity. But again, our guys are playing hard, they're resilient. And I did say this a little bit, not necessarily an excuse, but it's just, to me, it's part of what's happened. Our guys played their butts off for 4 weeks to put ourselves in this position. And I appreciate the effort they gave us. But honestly, I think we were a little wore down. And we did everything we could to make it a great game, to give us an opportunity and restore the rivalry that is Washington-Dallas.
Welcome to Beal. Gets open for three. Dagger!
The kick, and here it comes. Swing and a miss! And a World Series Game 7 winning Curly W is in the books.
Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions.
You like that? You like that? I like that.
You gotta like that, right?
My approval ratings keep going up.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business.
Welcome in. This is Defeating the Curse, a rare midday show, but man, do I love these shows. I don't have to stay up late. I don't have to beg anyone to come on with me. I don't have to, get extra caffeine into my system to stay awake. For those that have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Stevie, I love these shows. I got to be honest. I love the midday shows. It definitely pulls us away from life and from other things that we're supposed to be doing. It's one of these rare shows, but there's a lot happening around the Washington football team. There's a lot happening around the Capitals. There's a lot happening around the Wizards, and I'm not going to try to make conversation with you about either of those teams because there's no chance that you've been watching either. But I was with you on Sunday, and we did watch the majority of the Washington football team. You know what? I'm going to say at Dallas because Dallas took over FedEx, and I think we all expected, Dallas fans, the never been to Dallas fans, the normal Dallas fans, the annoying Dallas fans. I think we expected all of them to be in FedEx. That shouldn't have surprised anyone that follows the football team or that's been to FedEx in the past. You and I, of course, we have complained many a time about our club seats for many years and our season tickets and our dream seats. I feel like we've paid our dues in that regard.
Dream seats.
What I didn't expect, though, is that the Carolina Stars would be in town, right? And almost 200 fans coming up from Charlotte, North Carolina, to come cheer on it's like there was like this thing, and I'm not going to go onto Cowboys Reddit to see how they organize, but man, do they show up, especially when, they know there's available seats. So you got to give them credit, I guess. They travel really well, in the nation's capital here in D.C. Leading up to the game, Stevie, obviously Washington was coming off a 4-game win streak. They ended up obviously losing the game. That clip that we led the show in with is Coach Rivera on local radio early Tuesday morning talking about, restoring the rivalry. And certainly leading up to this game, it felt like some of the older, then Redskins, Cowboys games. Like it had that, allure around it. And I think it was because both teams were needing a win. Obviously, the Cowboys secure their spot up top the NFC East, and now they're really in the driver's seat to run away with the division at this point. I think they need one of their last 3 against the division opponents to basically lock it up. The best Washington can do is tie them, and that's assuming a split. But I don't even want to get into the advanced analytics of how Washington can win the division. The important part as we sit here right now, to me, is Washington is, if the playoffs started today, which they don't, Washington is in as that 7th seed, but they have 2 games left against the Eagles. They have 1 against the Giants and obviously 1 against the Cowboys. But before we start looking too far ahead, I want to go back to Sunday and get your thoughts on the game. That first half was atrocious in so many different regards. The second half, they held Dallas to 3, and I think if you want to hang your hat on anything, that's probably where you start. But what were your initial impressions? Because mine were not very positive.
Yeah, I we just heard that quote from Rivera. I mean, I'm not sure we were watching the same game. And let me just okay, all right. I got a bunch of different places I can go here, but restoring the rivalry. What restores the rivalry is when you have 2 contenders, perennial contenders that are at the top of their league that are playing year in and year out. Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and every other SEC team, in Georgia and LSU, and Penguins and Capitals, who are the Lakers rivals? Who I don't know. But
The Celtics.
So there you go. Lakers,
Used to be
Celtics.
the Kings. At one point, it was
But you can't have you cannot have a rivalry when you have two mediocre. I mean, Dallas is more than mediocre, but when you don't have perennial contenders, when we are not a contender on a year in year out basis, who cares? That antiquated idea of getting amped up for Dallas week because it's Dallas week. Okay, that's so.
I get amped up for Dallas week.
So stupid because it's like if we lose every game but we beat Dallas, it's like that's so stupid. You go 2-14.
I don't agree with that extension of it. Like there are other games that matter. But it is your rival, and historically there is a lot of context around the rivalry. There is.
It was your rival because they were year in and year out competing in the early 90s. When we were winning Super Bowls in the late 80s and in 91, 92, they were also at the top of their game and took over as, the top brass of the NFL.
And a lot of it, you're right. And a lot of it had to do with the NFC East also being the premier division, right? For the Giants had their moment. The Eagles, obviously, with your boy McNabb under center. I mean, they were essentially contenders all the time, right? And that's what happens when you have a quarterback. Like some things are from generation to generation, right? If you have a quarterback, you're going to compete. Eli Manning, say what you want about him, he belongs in the Hall of Fame. He may end up in the Hall of Fame as a broadcaster as well because the Manning broadcast is amazing. But when you have the quarterback, you're going to compete. And for Washington, outside of the Brad Johnson time and then the Jason Campbell years, I guess, when Gibbs got him into the playoffs and then one RG3 run.
Listen to what you just said. That makes no sense.
I'm saying they haven't. I'm supporting your point. There isn't a rivalry here because Washington hasn't been that perennial contender. They haven't.
Yes,
they haven't.
We're not old enough, but we've read enough history books that the rivalry was born with George Allen and Staubach and Jurgensen and Riggins and these names. You can't be like, oh, Jason Garrett versus Jason Campbell or Danny Warford.
Or McCarthy and Rivera.
That's not a rivalry. That's a really crappy football game. And so
and this game started out as a really crappy football game. I mean, the Cowboys were all over the WFT from the beginning. I mean, maybe Ron was onto something. That quote, I mean, he basically said the team maybe was a little tired. I mean, a 4-game win streak is not easy to do. It's possible, Stevie. They're on their fifth center. They just signed their potentially their sixth starting center. This about 2 hours ago, the football team claimed Jamil Douglas off waivers from the Buffalo Bills. If he plays one snap at center, he will be the sixth or maybe seventh center to play. That's insane, Steve.
You're making the opposite point, Joe, is they were not tired. They were not whatever. Rivera was looking at this game with very much rose-colored glasses here, okay? Because they weren't any of that. They were never in the game. I don't care that they had the ball with a chance to tie it up at the end of this game. They were never really in this game. Dallas let their foot off the gas in the second half.
I agree.
Defense let them back in it, and they – hey, do you have the Denny Green audio? Because they are who we thought they were. Okay, that's what we are.
Well, I think you got to tip your hat to the Cowboys as well. I think they are who we thought they were as well. I mean, the Cowboys are a very talented offensive team, and Micah Parsons and that defense, they're really. I mean, this is, I believe, and again, I'm not going to go a mile deep on Cowboys Reddit to confirm this, but I believe that this is the first game where the entire Cowboys complement, offensive and defensive parts, all their studs on both sides of the ball were healthy and played. And for those first 24 minutes, Stevie, I mean, they looked awesome. Well, they looked just, I mean, that defense had no gaps. And part of that too is Washington struggles. And you mentioned this last week, the receivers struggled to get separation. We can talk about Taylor and his noodle arm and his inability. I mean, it's almost laughable that he was telling Terry on a scramble to go deeper. Like, if anything, he should be doing the other motion, like come closer, right? Like pick up football on the street. Like he can't get it there. The ball's always late. It's always high. And I don't want to talk about that at length, but the Cowboys, even without Tony Pollard, they looked, and even, I mean, Zeke had 40 yards rushing. Like Zeke is not who.
It sucks.
I mean, at this point, he's a shell of himself. But between CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, and by the way, the Cooper chants are super annoying. Michael Gallup, had a 50-yard bomb called back. They have a ton of offensive firepower. And I'm actually surprised that they only gave up 3 points, that the football team only gave up 3 points in the second half.
Well, you highlighted that side of the ball. I was much more struck by the other side of the ball. And, I don't want to talk about Taylor because any quarterback under that type of duress is not going to succeed. I mean, we've seen it with Brady against the Giants in those Super Bowls. And when you got guys coming at you like that, the way Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons were coming at you, you had no time. And admittedly, I had some other obligations on Sunday, as you know, but when I watched that game, Terry McLaurin looked small. He didn't look inadequate. He looked small against Trayvon Diggs, okay? And, I mean, talk about no separation. I mean, there was just no chance he was going to get open on a route. I mean, it almost looked like Taylor stopped looking at him because Trayvon Diggs was following him around and 0 catches. I mean, that's incredible for your number one receiver in a big game like this. And so, I mean, they were dominant on the defensive side of things, and they look like a complete team. When you talk about every level of that defense, their linebackers covering hash mark to hash mark. I mean, these guys are flying around the ball. That front four looks scary now that they got everybody back. Randy Gregory made one of the most athletic plays I've seen a defensive end make on that interception. So we were completely overmatched. Our O-line stood no chance. We could not establish the running game. And like you said, Taylor Heineke is a backup quarterback against a premier defense. We were never in that game. And so what I want to tell Mr. Rivera, with all due respect, is, hey, we're a mediocre football team. And obviously he can't admit this in a press conference. We're a mediocre football team that's hanging on. And the best case scenario for this season right now is we hang on to that 7 seed, get blown out in the wild card of the playoffs, and cut our losses and have a lovely win.
I'm happy that you're on that. Let's still push for the playoffs, because some of our cast members here they're not pro tanking, but they also don't want to make the playoffs and lose. But here's I'm with you. I think if you have the chance to compete and make the playoffs, you should, because you have to. There's more than just the draft, right? At this point, even if you miss the playoffs by a game or two, you're still drafting in the high teens. You're not in the lottery sweepstakes. You're not going to have a top 3, 5, 6 pick. It's not going to happen. And frankly, when you have those picks, Chase, I think the jury's still out on him. Great rookie campaign, obviously injured in his second season, and we'll see what happens long term. But I am of the mindset that you have to push to make the playoffs, because you can't afford, no coach can afford to lose the locker room and basically just mail it in. But secondly, you have to be able to retain your free agent talent when they come up, for contract renewals. And that's really hard to do when your team is constantly missing the playoffs. And more importantly, and this is my opinion, but I think if we're honest, it's more important that you're competing, or at least consistently making the playoffs, to be able to poach free agents and bring free agents in, because you have to be able to say, how much easier is it for Ron to try to close a free agent next summer saying, I've been here for 2 years. We've made the playoffs for 2 years. We're building something here and we're moving forward. Even if it's an ugly way into the playoffs, you have to be able to keep your talent. You have to be able to, bring in free agents. And obviously you're going to have to draft well also. But, I mean, go talk to the Detroit Lions, who are picking every single year in the lottery in the top 3 or 4 or 5. Go talk to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have a new coach and, revolving door of coaches and quarterbacks. Like, I would much rather be the football team. I'd much rather make the playoffs and be building towards something, even if it's really slowly. But I just don't think you can afford to mail it in. I mean, and the irony here is, they have a tall task against Philly. I mean, Philly, Gardner, your boy Minshew came in and played very well for them on Sunday. I think we're going to have Jalen back under center. Jalen is a dual threat quarterback. I mean, he's going to run more than he's going to throw. But Philly's been doing. I mean, Philly, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've won 5 of 6 or 4 of 5 or something to that effect. So kind of in the same spot as the football team. And obviously they're looking at the schedule and saying, if we get 2 on Washington, we leapfrog them and into that 7th spot. So they're playing for something too. Their formula for success tends to be the same as Washington. Run the ball a lot. Don't rely on the quarterback to make those deep throws or to pass your way into a game or out of trouble. I think it's going to be really hard for Washington to compete in this game if they're missing all the defensive players that they're missing, most notably, I mean, Jonathan Allen, who is, and we, I don't know, part of me doesn't want to talk about this, but I think we have to. You have a mix of vaccinated players and unvaccinated players in pretty much every locker room across the NFL. Jonathan Allen is a vaccinated player. Unless he's walking around like, doing snot rockets at other players or something to merit having him tested for COVID, we got to stop with the random testing.
Are you suggesting that you want guys walking around a crowded room or locker room with an illness that they could transmit to other people without knowing?
I am suggesting that the athletes in the NFL represent the top 0%, like 0.1% of the healthiest people on the planet. And if they get COVID,
350 pounds. I'm not sure he's the healthiest.
Okay, but they're not obese. I mean, they're physically able to perform at a level that most humans on the planet can't. My point is, Stevie, if they're vaccinated, why are we still testing them? Like at this point, we know you can be vaccinated and get COVID. You can be vaccinated and spread COVID. You can be unvaccinated and not get COVID. Like all of these things still exist. But here we are at a pivotal point of the season. A vaccinated player now has to test negative twice on back-to-back days to be able to play in what is effectively a playoff game, showing no signs of illness at all.
Come on, Joe. I mean, these men and people are being forced to go to a workplace environment where they cannot work remotely. They cannot work from home. So they're being forced to go to a place with hundreds of other people in the building. And so, for the safety of everybody, I mean, they're interacting with trainers. They're interacting with the I don't know, ball kids. I don't know, whatever.
They're also interacting with fans. They're interacting with the coaches.
Okay.
They're also living their lives outside of the Ashburn bubble.
Is how do they get? How did Montez Sweat get COVID, and how did Jonathan Allen get it from him when Montez Sweat's not even supposed to be around the team?
Well, and Montez Sweat is an interesting one as well, because Montez Sweat is an unvaccinated player that is on the COVID list, who is potentially eligible to return as early as Saturday to the team, which means he could be active for Sunday, but he hasn't practiced with the team in, I don't know, 2.5 weeks. I mean, what do you do if you're Ron Rivera and Montez clears and he's able to go? Obviously, if Jonathan Allen's going to go. Like if he tests negative twice, he's going to go, no question about it. But if you're coach, Rivera or JDR, and you've got Montez potentially able to play on Sunday, returning to the team on Saturday, able to play on Sunday, but he hasn't practiced with the team, do you bring him on and let him basically push him out there because you're so light basically on defensive ends and defensive players, or do you say no? I'd rather have the guy who's been practicing for 2 weeks.
No, I mean Montez Sweat is a first round premier pass rusher. I mean, he's a talented guy. The question I have is, does he need to be on a snap count? Like, what's his stamina coming back? And so if that's the case, then I think you're rotating him in on clear pass rushing situations. So you're getting him in on third downs, you're getting him in second and longs, getting him to attack the quarterback when there's a clear passing down, and then rotating out the other guys. And because he is coming back from injury. It's been, 5, 6, maybe even 7 weeks. And, he hasn't practiced with the team. So scheme wise, he may need a little bit of learning curve here. But when there's going to be pass rushing downs, you're going to need Montez Sweat in there. You're going to need those big arms, those kind of long arms to get in the way of some of the passing lanes. Absolutely. If he's available, he needs to be in there on pass rushing downs at the minimum.
Yeah, I think you've got to play him as well. He's too talented, and he's going to be better than anyone else. Like James Smith-Williams is on the COVID list. Cornerback Darryl Roberts on the COVID list. Jonathan Allen, we mentioned, is on the COVID list. David Mayo is now on the COVID list. Who else? Defensive end William Bradley King is on the COVID list. I mean, it's literally half of the defensive starters from Sunday are either on the list or potentially could be unavailable at the Eagles. Coming up here in half a week or so. I mean, they've got time to get some of these guys back, and it may end up being just just some noise, some early week, shenanigans that kind of works itself out. But you could potentially, I mean, if Sweat is available, he has to go. And the way that the testing works, because the testing is typically done in the afternoons, Sweat, I think, would miss the flight or the team bus or train or whatever to Philly, so he'd have to get himself there and then test. The whole thing is just a mess. I am a little shocked, actually, that the NFL is still kind of pushing this constant testing narrative. I think they got to let it go, man. I think they got to let it go.
We'll drive Sweat to Philadelphia. Okay, it's just Philly. It's not like
absolutely. Let's go. We'll get a cheesesteak and we'll come back. Yeah, he can find his own way home there.
Okay, you need a ride. Okay, just let us know. Joe's got the minivan. Okay, we'll fire
That's
it
right.
up.
Fire up the DTC. Yeah, absolutely. We'll ask some of the roadies to come with us, and we'll go up. No problem. But if Sweat's available, I think you're gonna have to play him. I don't see a way around it. I mean, he's too good.
You're playing for your playoff lives right now. I mean, you are tied for the last playoff spot. You are one loss away from being in the 12th spot. I mean, you're tied with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other teams that, one loss right now to a team that you're tied with that is the current 9 seed and you're the 7 seed.
Well, really, and some of those teams, I think we have to be honest with ourselves too. The Vikings are better than their record. They are. They just are. I mean, Dalvin Cook is an animal. Say what you want about Kirk. I know he for some reason that team can't close out. Kirk can never close out.
It's their coach.
Yeah, it's probably the coach too. But the Vikings, they're a better team as constructed today. They have better receiving options, better running back options, better quarterback play, and you could argue certainly a better defense. Although they have a much harder schedule the rest of the way, the Vikings they're a better team. They're just a better team, and they are better than right now as constructed the football team. So look at some of those other teams, Stevie. I mean, they don't have a tiebreaker on the Saints. The Saints look atrocious, but they have the tiebreaker. And look at the Falcons. I mean, the Falcons, we saw them way back in week 3, I believe. Eked out a win against Atlanta. But in all honesty, which team would you think is playing better football right now? I just think Atlanta's probably going to make some noise down the stretch as well. Washington's going to have to beat Philly twice. And then the scariest game on the schedule, honestly, is the Giants game, because generally when a team's got nothing to play for, sometimes you let your guard down. How many times have we seen Washington go into the final game of the season with either the opportunity to disrupt somebody else's playoff chances or secure their own, and just absolutely lay an egg? Right?
Play spoiler. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at those NFC teams. I mean, is Washington that much better or better at all than some of those other teams that they're chasing or tied with?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm more interested in that top of the NFC now that I'm looking at it. I mean, that's going to be a fun playoffs when you have, Rodgers, Brady as the old guys, the 1-2 seeds, and then you got the young guys with Kyler and Dak, and then Stafford looked great yesterday. I mean, some of the throws he made, it seems like he's getting on the same page with OBJ.
The Van Jefferson touchdown was a thing of beauty. Running the wrong way, scrambling to his left or whatever it was, and then the heave. I mean, could Taylor Heineke make that throw if you gave him 10 tries? I don't think so. That hit, it literally landed in the basket. Like, it literally landed in Van Jefferson, like in his hands, without breaking his stride. Something that we've been asking for from Heineke to Taylor for the entire season. That Stafford throw was special. It was really good. And the Rams are better than their record also.
Absolutely. And that's why I wouldn't mind a Rams-Cardinals rematch right there, or put Brady against the Cowboys. I mean, this is going to be a fun NFC playoffs. The 6 and 7 seeds will not factor in, which is fine. But you know what? If we can get one more weekend of football here in DC, we can get something to cheer for on in mid-January now. I hear the playoffs are starting super late. When's the Super Bowl? They move it to March yet?
No, it's not. It's not in March, guy. it's not
crazy.
In March.
They keep on moving it back.
It's the weekend. So the February 5th, 6th weekend is the Pro Bowl weekend. So it's the following one.
All right, so that's a week later. Then
yes,
they keep on moving it back a week. I mean,
I believe we start getting Saturday football this week.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so Saturdays and Sundays now. Yeah, there are fantasy implications, and we try not to talk about the only league that matters here, the fantasy league. But yeah, there was it was a nice opportunity to watch the end of the football team Dallas game together and to see the boys scrambling to see who's got up, because the whole league is basically tied. So our fantasy league accurately reflects the NFC at the moment. Everyone's tied with the same record and looking at tiebreakers.
Joe, the playoffs, what are you, a week behind? The season's over.
No, I understand. I'm saying at the time on Sunday, everyone was looking
I'm saying
at it.
you're burying the lead here, which is you didn't make the playoffs and I'm the number one seed.
I did not make the playoffs.
Who gives a crap about tiebreakers? You didn't make the playoffs. I'm the number one seed. I have no fantasy implications this week because I have a bye, and I am looking to go back to back.
Where's the trophy, by the way?
It was there. It was present. Don't worry. I mean, it wasn't the right decor for my kid's third birthday party, so I had to hide it a little bit.
I mean, don't let the fantasy league hear you say that. They won't appreciate that. We actually haven't seen many pictures of it this year, Stevie. Something you got to correct.
It's coming out for playoff time. Don't worry. Should be a fun playoffs.
Did you get a chance to watch any of the other NFL matchups on Sunday?
No.
Mainly the Chiefs. The Chiefs all of a sudden look like the team that we, formerly watched and, recognized.
Did we doubt? No, I didn't watch that. But no, did we really doubt that they were going to turn a corner? I mean, talent always prevails in this league, which is not to go back to Washington, but which is why everybody kind of regresses to the mean. We knew the Chiefs were going to be great, and I think they've won 5 in a row.
Yeah, they're on a heater as well. I mean, but this win against the Raiders was impressive, and it was I saw this little nugget on the crawl. The Chiefs beating the Raiders 48-9. It's the first time that score has ever been the final score of an NFL game. I don't know why I care about little things like that from time to time, but there's never been a 48-9 game before. And honestly, the Raiders, I mean, who started off hot-ish and then lost their coach and then got hot again. They now, back-to-back weeks have dropped to the football team, not a very close game, to the Chiefs. The Chiefs kind of blew them out. I mean, the Raiders seem like the wheels are coming off. And if that continues, I think here in D.C., the rumblings of Carr to D.C. will come up again and again because, let's be honest, the football team won't be in a position where they're going to be drafting a quarterback. So they're likely going to be looking at the potential free agent or trade options out there. And this may be it. And personally, I like David Carr. I mean, he would be an upgrade over anyone on the roster currently. And I know there's still some people that are slinging the Taylor love, left and right.
Derek Carr would be better than David Carr. I think you mean Derek Carr.
Did I call him David again?
You did, and you went with the old school boy.
It keeps coming up. He played for the Texans, if I'm not mistaken.
David Carr has the same arm as Taylor Heineke at the moment.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. But, to bring it back to Washington, I mean, Taylor is probably not – I can't foresee a scenario where he's the starter in Washington next year. I mean, do you see him as the starter in Washington?
I see it, but I think it's a bad scenario where we have struck out on several other options. I think that's where, we go out in free agency. We're not able to lure a top-tier guy, and so, then we're stuck with Taylor. I don't think he is our first, second, or third choice right now.
I agree. I think it's very tough to see him as the actual starter, right? I mean, he wasn't the starter this year. He came in, to take over basically for Fitzpatrick, and $10 million spent on Fitzpatrick for 3 pass attempts, and it sucks. But that's how the curse rolls in Washington. Curtis Samuel comes in with a lot of expectations, and even this morning, on local radio, they were asking Ron about Curtis Samuel's workload. I mean, he was brought in to be more of a Swiss Army knife, more of the Cordell Patterson role. The run, catch, and sometimes even pass. Like just do different things from different positions on the field. He was healthy. I mean, and even when Terry goes out of the game on Sunday, I mean, he wasn't anywhere to be found. Cam Sims is the one making the crazy touchdown grab, which was very, very, I mean, what an awesome catch from him. But, Humphreys is still running all the underneath stuff. Terry, he's in concussion protocol, and it looks like he will likely play against Philly later this week, or this weekend on Sunday. But, I mean, Curtis Samuel's been a disappointment as well. I mean, the Washington needs a bunch of things. But obviously, to me, and I think anyone would agree who watches football, it starts and ends with the quarterback. And we saw what Kyle can't give you also. And honestly, Stevie, you saw the fumble, or what was called a fumble that I don't think it was a fumble. I've watched that play 6 or 7 or 8 times just this morning, like just scrolling on Twitter. The ball is clearly moving forward. I understand it's on his fingertips, but it doesn't. He doesn't lose it straight up in the air. I mean, it's moving forward, which means he's pushing it forward, which means it should.
I don't think about. Again, I'm not claiming to be an expert, and everybody makes up their own things with the NFL rules, but I don't think it's about the direction that the ball was moving in. I think it's the empty hand rule in the sense that when his hand moves forward, he does not possess control of the ball, and so I think it was bang bang play. I think it was the call on the field was going to prevail. But, man, that was a stomach punch. I mean, they had a chance.
Absolutely. But so was the Taylor fumble. Taylor had that ball pinned on his chest, and then it comes out, and it turns into a thing where, okay, well, and this was interesting. I saw this on Twitter this morning too. How do you differentiate, roughing the passer when a defensive player, like had Taylor held onto the ball, would that have been called roughing the passer because the defensive player put his entire weight on the quarterback or not? Like, how does the NFL plan to differentiate between, whoever falling on a defensive end falling on a quarterback and causing a fumble versus if Taylor holds on to it, it goes 15 yards the other way? Like, I don't understand that rule either. Like, I don't know. It's some of these things, and Ron alluded to it too. Like, they don't make you happy. They make you annoyed. Probably is the best word or most polite word about it. But that those two plays are not the reason that the football team lost.
Exactly.
That's not why they had no answer for Micah Parsons at all.
Exactly.
Micah was both somehow blitzing off, like straight up the middle and getting sacks, off the ends and getting pressure, and then falling back into coverage and almost having interceptions. I mean, I don't know. He kind of reminds me of like a younger Ray Lewis, maybe.
Let's slow your roll a little bit there, Joe. Okay.
I'm trying to think of another linebacker who is that versatile to go, center pressure, edge pressure, and then potentially fall back into coverage and actually make, meaningful plays. Can you think of one?
Who I love, R.I.P., Derek Thomas.
Derek Thomas is a good one, yeah.
Derek Thomas was screaming off that edge, but he could also cover.
Like London could do 2 of those 3, right? He could never drop back into coverage.
If you're gonna drop London, I'll drop you some Wilbur Marshall. Okay, if we're going.
I'm just saying, like in DC, like I was really trying to think hard about like the last time we had a linebacker that really could do that. Cover 15, 20 yards down the field, be an edge rusher when needed and also blitz up the center. There's only a handful maybe in the whole league that can do that. On the current construction of the football team, the closest player you have to be able to do that, ironically, is Landon Collins.
Well, I mean, we had a guy that could do all of that. He played free safety in his number 36 and 21. Okay, so
21 forever.
Hey, speaking of departed NFL players, I don't know how to segue.
It's an interesting segment we're in here, but go ahead.
I just rewatched that Netflix special on Aaron Hernandez. You ever seen it?
I did. Miami Killer.
Dude, it was freak. Yes. That is wild stuff, man.
How much of his craziness was due to Tim Tebow being his quarterback at Florida?
Dude, no, man. Tebow, Urban Meyer, they were trying to put him on the straight and narrow, man. But that guy was wild. Absolutely wild.
Yes.
He just never, and I don't buy the CTE stuff in his case. And I know they tried to make it about that at the end of the show. I absolutely believe CTE affects many, many NFL players and makes them do crazy things.
That's not question. Junior Seau is the one that comes to mind.
Absolutely. But, man, he was into some bad stuff. And
Stevie, we grew up in an era where the NFL sold like VHS and DVDs of the biggest hits in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Right, that's the era. That's what brought us into football. It was never the offensive showman, right? Like that's where the league is now. But once upon a time, it was about big hits and collisions and the violence of the game. That's actually what pulled us in, right?
Well, what's funny is I was just thinking about this. Sunday Night Football was like must-see TV when there was a Ravens-Steelers game that would end up 9-6 with Big Ben throwing for like 120 yards to Hines Ward. I mean, Hines Ward was popping people as a wide receiver. I mean, those games, how many concussions came out of those games? I was watching, like I said, the Aaron Hernandez, seeing him get hit by Ray Lewis a couple times in those playoff games. I mean, you're right. That's what the league buttered its bread on for so many years. And there's a culpability there with the NFL, with absolutely,
Sure.
with the higher ups there. But
I mean, Sean Taylor, you mentioned 21. Is he more known for his interceptions or for leveling the Pro Bowl, the punter in the Pro Bowl, right?
Bill Moore,
or for going toe to toe with Randy Moss and shoving, like literally riding his face into the ground. It was all predicated on these big hits, and you're right. I think there is some culpability there. The NFL obviously clearly doesn't sell those DVDs or those they don't sell those big hit packages anymore. And now the league has gone the other way, right? Where everything is a defensive pass interference. Literally everything. How many bad calls on any given Sunday? There's probably 10 terrible defensive pass interference calls. And I'm convinced at this point, Stevie, that there's offensive packages that basically the quarterback has no intention of throwing a catchable ball to the receiver. The play is receiver go as far down the field as possible, initiate contract, and fall over and complain because the refs are going to throw the flag based on how the rules are structured.
Well, to say the league has gone the other way, I for the life of me, with all of modern technology and everything we got, don't know why we have not been able to introduce new equipment, new helmets. And I think they're out there. And I believe that, the technology has been created and that we have modern gear that can protect against concussions and major injuries. I think the NFL, I don't know, something, whether it's more expensive, whether it's, bad for the game, whether it's bad for the quality of the play, it's heavier, it'll slow down the play. I don't know what it is, but it's archaic, where we're at right now. And,
but the helmet technology has come. Like they have the inflatables now for guys that, if you remember, Jordan Reed actually had one of those helmets. It made his head look like a fat head, but he would put the helmet on and then they would pump it up basically to like
not
extra cushion. Yeah. I mean that you're right. I mean the league has progressed in that regard, and obviously they're funding a lot of the research now into helmet technology. But the league seems to be losing players that we grew up watching or like that were younger than us. Like Demaryius Thomas passed last week. Demaryius Thomas. I didn't go too deep into the story, but the love that he's got, like the love for him in the Denver community. My wife is from Denver. Like the Broncos are a beloved franchise, or one of the legacy, franchises, multiple Super Bowl wins, obviously. To see the pictures and the stories coming out about all the stuff that Demaryius did, like for him to die at just such a young age, it's a shame. And he, his career ended very abruptly. I think he was lastly a member of the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. I think he retired from the league as a Jet. But these things happen, and it's the toll that this game takes on. Jordan Reed was trying to, make it back onto a roster yet again, and basically his agent dropped him. His family was ready to disown him. And he's, it's people, like players have to. I can't imagine how hard it is for them to make a decision of like how much risk is too much risk, especially when you're in multiple concussion situations. And Jordan Reed was having them seemingly bi-weekly, almost to the point of like they were just migraines to him. That's scary, man. And now like even Ron this morning, again on local radio, he was talking about, we don't mess around with concussion protocol. Terry's in concussion protocol now. J.D. McKissick likely will return. Will exit concussion protocol and be available to the team starting on Wednesday this week, starting tomorrow. So, it's tough to say, man. And honestly, the Terry, I don't know. I kind of blame Taylor for Terry's concussion. I think it was a bad read. It was a bad throw. It was maybe 10 yards underthrown. He had to leap to get it yet again.
Well, just to go back to your point and even actualize it on a different level. Me and you, I don't think anyone would ever or say that we have small social networks. And between our two social networks, I'll speak for myself. I don't know anyone. I have 3 children who play sports on a seasonal basis. I don't know any of, certainly not my children, and any of their friends who are playing tackle football, peewee football, in any elementary age children in my social network.
My nephew Thomas plays peewee, but it's 2 flags.
Flags.
Exactly. Yeah, it gets a little rough from time to time, but like they're not They're not tackling each other. No.
But
This whole generation, Stevie's going to end up not learning how to tackle properly, right? And eventually, like, it's fundamentals, right? Like, there's a whole generation of NBA players, right, that all think that they're point guards and dribble and fancy dribbling, whatever. They can't make free throws, right? It's either they can hit 3-pointers and they can dunk, but they can't make free throws, right? I mean, doesn't the NFL risk the same, that you end up with players that are even lousier at tackling, that are going to be even more susceptible to injury?
Well, unfortunately, I think the NFL has a talent pool that they're pulling from lower socioeconomic status areas where they are pulling these kids off the street. And,
it's not the NFL. I mean, it's not the NFL, right? I mean,
it leads up to that.
High schools, private schools,
NFL,
college. Yeah,
they're promising that little pipeline, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a game for kids who are trying to get out of their situations or whatever, and so it'll just be something that, again, is a class thing, is where the haves will be sitting in the stands watching. It's kind of like barbarians, kind of just kill each other until, and I hate to say this, someone dies in an NFL game.
Well, I mean, and the NFL's had to wrestle with that previously. They've had players, become paralyzed on the field. They've had players, be knocked out cold. Yeah,
I think on a weekly basis they bring out the stretcher, and you see the defensive players signaling the bench, come on, and they bring out the little cart, and then the guy puts his thumb up, and then everybody gives the golf clap like he's okay, and
then he goes to the locker room and falls over.
Yeah. Oh, they pump him with whatever they're pumping in the back, so it's best not to think about it.
Well, but they make, I mean, it's the trade-off for being, they're compensated.
Well, exactly. No one is forced.
Like royalty.
It is not like a draft for the military. No one is forced to participate in any of this. So,
and that's why, like, we've seen in previous years, we've seen players just retire. Basically make their millions and then just, I don't need any more.
In the Aaron Hernandez documentary, Chris Borland was a linebacker for the Niners who retired after one season because he had read the research on CTE and was just like, screw it. I didn't even make my millions, but I'll keep my brain intact and go find gainful employment elsewhere.
And honestly, you can't hold it against them, right? But at the same time, you look at a guy like Jordan Reed who's trying to continue to stay in the league, but the league won't let him. You're putting yourself in an unreasonably risky situation. Like, you just can't do it, and yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, like with the NFL in particular, because the contracts aren't guaranteed, like they get guaranteed money, but it's not like the NBA or, the NBA, like you sign your name on the line. You can, I mean, look at Zion, and I'm not going to pick on him, but I mean, Zion, he might not get to a second contract in the NBA, given the way his physique is changing and his, like, he's in a very tricky. I mean, honestly, there's
he put on a couple pounds. I don't know what's going on with Zion.
You can Google. I'm not going to crap on him. I'm not going to crap on anybody because of their.
He put on the COVID-15.
Well, I mean, maybe he got COVID like 10 times or something, like, yeah, potentially. But he may not. He honestly, like, he might not get to a second contract, but it's guaranteed. What he's got is guaranteed. And even here. This is going to be. I'm going to pivot into a Wizards topic here, and I know you're not going to be able to do anything. So
I'm googling Zion Williamson. So just keep talking.
Yeah, maybe after that you can do a Google on Bradley Beal and see how much money he potentially will earn this offseason as a free agent. But I don't know. I'm going to assume you watched 0 minutes of the Wizards at Nuggets yesterday, and I need to get LP on a show here because. The Wizards started off super red hot, Stevie. The football team was on a downward trend. The Wizards were on an upward trend, and there was some buzz around the Wizards. Then, for some reason, everything flip-flops. The football team goes on a 4-game winning streak, and the Wizards just keep dropping games. I think they're just above 500 right now, but the Bradley Beal is I think this is it for him as a Wizard. I think Tommy Shepard and the Wizards looked at him and John Wall and said he's the better of the two options at this point in time, and they were probably right. Actually, they were right. Bradley Beal was the better player head-to-head, John Wall coming off an injury and everything else. The thing that John Wall always had, that Bradley Beal never had, John Wall, you'd never see him with bad body language on the sidelines. He was always dapping up the players. He was always engaged in the game. He was always active in the community. Brad has tried to be that guy. He's never looked worse on the bench than he does right now. I mean, the body language is all wrong. It's definitely, I think the Wizards are punching, to start the season, they were punching way above their weight class. I mean, the minutes they were getting out of guys like Montrezl Harrell, who I love, but there's a reason why this guy is, he's undersized. He can't give you, he plays big, but he's not big. And, he's a liability, especially, and you got Gafford, who can't stay out of foul trouble. Like, the team was overperforming for sure to start the season, but you're paying Bradley Beal an insane amount of money to be your stud, to be your clear number one, which is what he wanted and what the team wanted for him, and they built this team around him. He's not giving you all-star, superstar, all-world performances right now. And when he's off, the whole team is off. Like, him and Spencer can't play at the same time. It's a very weird thing. Spencer is, who he thought he was, or who we thought he was. Like, he's going to come in and shoot, 30% from three and a little under 40% from the field. He's going to give you, 18 to 20 points. You put Beal into the mix, though. He's just, something is wrong there. And I know LP is going to disagree with me, but if you're Tommy Shepard and the Wizards, you can't pay Bradley Beal super max. You can't. He's not worth it. I know you watched. You went to a game. You went to a game a couple weeks ago, right? And I think you saw Beal in person.
I did. I went to the Heat game Saturday night.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have a read on this at all, but is Beal worth supermax money?
No,
is he
don't know
Steph
the answer to
Curry
that.
or Chris Paul or LeBron?
What I will throw back to you is that, because you follow this stuff and I don't, is all I know is that a couple weeks ago, you guys were booking tickets to the Eastern Conference Championship because they were red hot and saying these guys, rebuilt the team and, all this stuff. And now you're trying to blow things up. So, settle down a little bit, okay?
Well, okay. I mean, if you're Tommy Shepard, are you maxing out Bradley Beal again? Or do you ask him to take a pay cut?
How old is Bradley Beal?
I can search. I want to say he's 28. Let's see.
I mean, a guy like that, when he loses a step, it really affects his game. He doesn't have the size. When you look at like Jordan and those guys, when Jordan lost a step, what did he do? Turned into the post up fadeaway. That was basically the unstoppable, weapon.
So
LeBron.
Brad is 28. He's played, yesterday was his 25th game of the season. Worst field goal percentage in 6 seasons. Worst scoring average in 4 seasons. Worst 3-point percentage of his career. I mean, this is more than a slump, Stevie.
So, I wouldn't base anything off of 25 games or whatever. I would just say, how long is a max contract? 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah, he would be earning upwards of $45 million if they signed him to us. I mean, that's, I don't know. I know there's some people in the chat saying, yeah, he's pay him because he's been loyal to DC. I don't know if you can pay him that kind of money because he's been loyal to DC.
If he's truly loyal to DC, then you could talk to him and
pull
maybe,
a Brady.
Yeah,
take a little less.
Yeah, for a contender. I mean, if they get back to playing the way they were playing in the beginning of the season, then
I mean they are way off that form though. I think in 5 or 6 of their last 8 they've been down double digits like after the first frame or going into the second quarter. I mean, they're just not playing well. And I think some people put it on the coach. The coach is not creative enough, but I think also I think they just started off really hot, and that's okay. But Beal has to be able to carry you in games. Like, even if he's not going to push you over again, if you're earning supermax money, you should be able to carry the team and earn wins on your own. But even if you're not able to do that, you should be able to keep the games closer than what they've been. And I think that's the problem here. I think the Wizards have an uphill climb the rest of the way. They should still make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be contending for anything. They should still make the playoffs. But Bradley is an interesting case, man. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know if I would extend him. I just don't think you can. And the team on a whole, again, him and Spencer aren't playing well together, and they can't seem to get to keep Montrez on the court. I don't know. I don't know. Do you watch? So the NBA? The NBA, Stevie, usually
sorry, I'm
does.
not LP Joe. Okay, I'm sorry.
I know. I'm just here talking to myself, so I'm gonna
right
bring you back in. Will you watch the Christmas Day games at least? That's usually when like people start caring about the NBA. They do the marquee matchups on Christmas. The difference is they're gonna be head to head against NFL football because it's also on a Saturday. So I don't know. Like
what's on the slate for NBA? Give me the two top ticket games. Who are the Lakers?
I think we have. I believe the early game is. I think it's Miami at Boston, and I think the late game is the Nets at the Lakers. I believe, and I think there's one in the evening as well. Clippers at Suns or something like that.
I think it might be Bucks Suns. Would that be a rematch of the finals?
It would. That would be a good one. Chris Paul and the Suns are playing some spectacular basketball.
I would watch Bucks Suns while doing other stuff. And
while doing other stuff like watching NFL.
Yeah, exactly. I put it on a little TV, and I would tune into the end of a Lakers-Nets game. That'll most likely be a blowout.
But you would watch any NFL game first.
Oh yeah, December NFL football. Are you crazy? I'm offended.
Although I kind of like the Lions.
No, they wouldn't put those on the Saturday games. So the NFL's not stupid. So. Yeah, I would watch any NFL game with any type of playoff implication over the top NBA regular season game. Of course, I don't know. That's not even. You could poll the audience. It should be 95% to 5%, and that 5% should be LP and FP.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this show during football season is 95% football, right? It's these 5% are basically just my monologues of talking to myself because you're not. I know you're not watching anything but football team and NFL. So
I mean, don't ask me about a Nats regular season game versus a first round NBA playoff game.
I mean, are we to spring? When do pitchers and catchers report?
Now, who's talking to themselves by themselves right now? The MLB is currently in a lockout.
So no season.
Somebody's got to give in.
You call your boy Scott. Get Scott Boras and Rizzo in a room, Stevie.
Oh, I mean, I think Boras is loving this right now. I think Boras is pushing this.
Isn't Boras representative of the? Is he representing the players' union in these negotiations?
No, I don't think
players'
he's.
Union.
Yeah, I mean, I think only players can be on like the board of the players' union, but he's got a voice and he's using it.
I mean, do you believe there's a chance that we won't have baseball on time?
I mean, on time's a relative term, right? We have 162 games. The first 30 are expendable. So I think I'm not sure baseball can survive another protracted lockout. I think everyone will see that it'll hurt the bottom line of everybody: owners, players, contracts, revenue. I don't think they have. I mean, we've had some great MLB seasons, some great MLB playoffs, some really young stars coming into the league. So, I mean, the MLB is trending upwards. The last thing you want is a stoppage, work stoppage.
So, I mean, if there is a stoppage, the players just work out on their own or together, but away from the teams, or the teams let them in, or
no, they're not allowed to use the facilities. So spring training wouldn't happen.
Okay.
And I mean, it's baseball. It's not like, you can get into season shape in a matter of weeks. I mean,
if you shorten the season, you could argue that it makes every game that much more meaningful, right? I mean, it's a long season.
Yeah, I mean, but you're losing a lot. You're losing revenue. You're losing ticket sales. I mean, people like going to the ballpark. So in that regard,
as long as I can see Max one time at the park and stand up and cheer for him, I'll be fine.
You'd probably be seeing him the second week of the season when the Mets come into town. So right now, Max is slated to start the first or second game of the Mets season against us. And then the Mets come into Nats Park the week after, which he would pitch on regular rest, either the first or second game of that series. So
I mean, he should get a standing ovation. There's no question, right? I think he should retire a Nat when it's time. I mean, unless he wins multiple World Series or another one somewhere else. I mean, he's got to go in as a Nat.
I'm telling you, mark my words, the Mets will rue the day they sign that contract.
Why?
He doesn't have enough left in the tank. He is not a premier
there was no
pitcher
chance he was
right
coming
now.
back to DC. I mean,
no, I didn't want him. I think he's he's lost a step. I think his arm is not what it used to be. I mean, the last two of the last 3 seasons, he hasn't been able to pitch in a World Series game. Now, granted, he was in the World Series in those seasons. He wasn't able to pitch in a World Series game because of injury or arm fatigue. Read into that. I mean, like when someone's telling you what they are, believe them. He was not able to pitch last season because of arm fatigue. I mean, he was not pitching, he was going 4 or 5 innings, even when he was pitching in the World Series and divisional. And
well, he was going hard. He was grimacing. I mean, those are all things that we saw just, a million miles away on TV, but it'd be interesting. Maybe let's see if we can track down Matt.
I love Matt. Love him.
Let's see if we can get him, get his thoughts. I mean, he's obsessed.
You got to pull him away from a Christmas buffet or something. Okay.
He's busy. He's busy. He's doing stuff. It's that time of year. I don't know, Stevie. Matt loves certain things. I love certain things. I saw him briefly this past week, and I think in our 1 hour gathering together, I had like 4 hot chocolates. I can't stop drinking hot chocolate. I'm kind of obsessed with hot chocolate. I don't know what it is, and it kind of ricks me when people call it hot cocoa. I don't know why. It's just hot chocolate.
I mean, you went to Enchant, I believe, last week. Did you have a spiked hot chocolate for $18 or something?
I did not have it spiked. I was on full alert parent duty with strangers everywhere. So there's no spiking of anything, but I did order hot chocolate. It was not very good hot chocolate, but I drank
$7.
all of my kids.
Yeah.
It's $7 for like a Swiss Miss packet, basically, in hot water.
Yep.
We do it fancy over here. We get the Coco Motion. Have you ever seen the Coco Motion machine?
No, I look forward to seeing it.
Oh my goodness, Stevie, you mix it. You do a little bit of the milk or whatever your base is. Some people do it with water, whatever. You put the packets of thing or scoops in. Personally, I add a little bit of protein in there too, just because I try to convince myself it's a little healthier that way. But all that machine does is mix it very slowly. So there's no magic behind it, but for some reason it just tastes awesome. I can't stop drinking it.
I'm waiting for my invite.
All right, come over. We'll make it happen. Any final thoughts, Stevie? Any final thoughts as we sit here on this very bright Tuesday?
No, I mean, hey, big game on Sunday will go a long way in seeing where this team lands on the playoff spectrum. I mean, it is a must win. If they don't win it, they will not make the playoffs.
I agree. I think they have to win. They're going to have to win. If they don't intend to beat Dallas or can't beat Dallas, they're going to have to get both against Philly. So they are in playoff mode. But honestly, they've been in playoff mode for the past month, and they've fared pretty well. I mean, they've won 4 of 5, right? So like I think they still are deserved that credit or due that credit. I mean, they've won 4 or 5. I mean, 80% over the past month or 5 weeks is not a small feat, and against very competent opponents as well. So yeah, I'm with you. It's a must win for them. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the COVID list shakes out. We'll see if Montez is able to go. Hopefully Terry is able to go. JD is back. They start getting some of these pieces back. It was officially reported that Logan did tear his ACL, so he's done for the season officially. He was before then, but we won't see him probably until the start of next season. So we'll see, Stevie. Thank you for making time, as always, for everyone that has joined and tuned in and stayed with us. We appreciate the love. The show is called DTC, Defeating the Curse. It's available on all social media platforms and all podcast platforms as well. Find us, like us, subscribe, send in your comments, question ideas, or if you want to be part of the show, send me a DM. We're happy to pull in fans, and we did it with Shelly last week, and I think we have a special guest coming up, 2 special guests actually. We have Kirby coming on tomorrow, and my man Andy from the UK, a huge Washington football team fan from the UK, is going to be coming on as well. So stay tuned, and if you want to participate, like I said, just send in a note. We'll get you on the show. But thank you for hanging out with me and Stevie. Again, this is DTC. Thank you to The Contender for airing our show and for everything that they've done for us over the past several months. We appreciate them. Until next time, for Stevie, my name is Joe. This is DTC. We are out.